Utah's now session. The Honorable Derek People presiding.
Thank you. Please be seated. John. Go on the record in the matter of State of Utah versus MacNeill. Mr. MacNeill is present. Mr. Spencer is not.
He just ran to the restroom.
Okay. We'll wait till he gets back. Mr. MacNeill is present. His counsel are present. The state's attorneys are also present. We are outside the presence of the jury. The work at hand this morning is to establish a foundation for the child's testimony. Who will you call first?
State calls Doug Whitney.
Mr. Whitney, if you'll come up here to the clerk's desk, please raise your right hand and be sworn.
I do solemnly swear the testimony you shall give in the case now pending before the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do.
Thank you. If you'll be seated here, please.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Would you please state your name for the record and spell your last name?
Douglas Whitney, W-I-T-N-E-Y.
Mr. Whitney, how are you employed presently?
I'm with Utah County. I'm a county commissioner.
How long have you been a county commissioner?
Going on 3 years.
And prior to being a county commissioner, what was your employment?
I was working part-time for the county attorney's office. Prior to that, I was in the sheriff's office.
When you were at the county attorney's office, what was your position there?
I actually started the financial fraud unit back in 91. And then I moved over to the sheriff's office after 12 years and came back to the county attorney's office and did part-time work for about 3 years.
Okay. Are you familiar with the Martin MacNeill investigation?
I am.
And case? Were you a case officer assigned to that investigation?
I was.
Can you describe briefly what your role was as a case officer?
I was handed the case by Jeff Robinson. When I came, I agreed to work 12 hours on another case.
Is that 12 hours a week?
12 hours a week.
Okay.
And he brought in a second case and set it before me. He said, will you just look at this and tell me if there's something we can do? And after I looked at it, I told him, I said, I think there's something we can do.
And what was the second case that you were given?
The Martin MacNeill case.
Okay. Do you recall approximately when this occurred?
I think it was in July of 08.
2008. Okay. And you've referred to Jeff Robinson. Who is Jeff Robinson?
He's a bureau chief of the Investigations Bureau.
Was he your superior at the time?
He was.
Okay. Did you have occasion to make contact with an Alexis Summers during this investigation?
Yes.
And who is Alexis in relationship to the case?
She is one of the daughters of Martin and Michelle MacNeill.
Okay. Martin MacNeill, is he in the court today?
He is.
Where is he seated?
Over at the defendant's table.
Thank you. Tell me what your interaction with Alexis was.
She was a source of information, a lot of information. When I started the case, there was a couple of statements in the case file, a couple of letters, not a lot of information.
Okay.
So I started collecting information.
From Alexis?
From a lot of people.
Okay. Are you aware of, do you know Ada MacNeill?
I do.
And who is Ada?
She is the daughter of Vanessa, adopted by Martin and Michelle MacNeill.
And Vanessa, who's Vanessa?
Vanessa is one of the sisters of Alexis and the daughters of Martin and Michelle MacNeill.
Okay. In preparation for this hearing today, and for the record, we're here for the purpose of talking about foundation and questions with respect to Ada and her involvement in this case. Did you do anything to refresh your memory to prepare for this hearing?
I met with you, I think, 2 nights ago, and you...
Did you review any documents?
Yes.
What were those documents, generally speaking?
Copies of portions of emails and transcript of an interview.
Were those your emails?
They were.
Okay. Were you present for the interview as far as the transcript interview that you reviewed?
Yes.
Okay. Was Ada ever interviewed as part of this investigation?
Yes.
And who did that interview?
Patty Johnson.
And who's Patty Johnston?
She's an investigator with the Utah County Attorney's Office Investigations Bureau
Do you recall where that interview took place?
at the Children's Justice Center.
Do you know approximately when that took place?
I would believe it's probably in August, late August, early September, my guess,
Of what year?
of 2008.
2008. Was that early on in the investigation?
It was.
What was the purpose of that interview?
Well, it was alleged that she was with Martin when they came back to the home, and that Ada was the one who ran into the room and discovered her mother in the tub. We wanted to firm that up, see what else she had to say, see if we could get her to talk about other portions of the day. We also interviewed other siblings at that time.
Okay. Did you coordinate that interview through Alexis? Or what was it?
Well, it was,
Well, I mean, did
it
you
was
set-
our
did you
intent to interview the daughters.
Did you set up the interview through
Yes.
Alexis? Okay. And what was Alexis's relationship to Ada at this time?
It was like a mother figure.
Okay. Do you know where Ada was living at the time?
She was in Henderson, Nevada, I believe.
And she was living with whom?
Alexis and I believe Rachel.
Okay. So Alexis was a mother figure at this time?
Yes.
Okay. You had interactions with Alexis?
Yes.
You talked on the phone,
Talked on the phone, emailed.
emailed back and forth.
She'd stop in, see us.
Did you ever personally interview Ada about the facts of this case?
No.
Okay. Are you aware of whether or not Jeff Robinson ever personally interviewed Ada with respect to the facts of this case?
To my knowledge, when I was there, he did not.
Okay. It was Patty Johnston that interviewed her.
Yes.
Okay. Was there occasion when, you mentioned that this interview was early on in the investigation.
Yes.
Were there other questions that came up during the investigation that it would have been helpful to have Ada's input on?
Oh, yes.
What did you do in response to that, to try and get those questions answered?
Well, as after the first interview with her, this case went about 360 degrees. It went out. It just shot out. We were trying to gather documents. We were trying to interview people. And as a result of those interviews, things came to light that we were interested in. And as a result of that interest and my ongoing communication with an information source, Alexis, she would send us some information. We were hoping that we would get more information from Ada than what we got from the original interview.
Okay.
And we thought that time would heal that, and we'd be able to use that. And without asking, Alexis contacted us a number of times and said, you know, in a casual conversation, Ada said this.
Okay. So you became aware of the fact that Alexis and Ada on occasion would communicate about the facts of the case?
Sure.
About what Ada saw, her experience, and so forth?
I would be surprised if they hadn't
Okay.
in that relationship.
Did you ever ask Alexis to follow up with specific questions with
Sure.
Ada? Okay. And the purpose of that again was what?
Confirmation. Alexis gave us a lot of information, but information is information unless you corroborate it. And so we have boxes of information.
Did you ever inform Alexis what facts you were specifically looking for?
No,
What you needed as an investigator for Ada to say
no,
or for Alexis to say?
no.
Okay.
What do you mean by you asked her to follow up then?
Ask her to follow up. As far as she sent us, I recall an email that she sent us regarding what Ada had seen in the bathroom as it relates to her mother in the tub. And she indicated that she was fully clothed. And having been at the house and knowing the tub itself, I said she must have been pretty close to that tub to have been able to see that the woman was, as you see, the tub is rather high, to see that she was fully clothed. And I said, could you just ask Ada how close she got to the tub?
In your questions of Alexis, because you wanted to follow up on specific pieces of information,
Yes.
but did you ever tell her this is what we need Ada to say?
Absolutely not.
Okay. You're going to all pass the witness for now.
Randy, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
You never told Alexis specifically what you wanted Ada to say, but you did share with Alexis your theories in relation to the case, correct?
Those theories changed on a weekly, monthly basis. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, we talked.
And so as the theories changed, you continued to be in communication with Alexis.
Yes.
And then you continued to share the changing theories.
Not all of them, but most. Most. That pertained to her. I would talk to her.
And you shared with Alexis your investigative summary reports as well, correct?
Mostly I may have shared some with her, mostly her statement. I wanted to make sure that what I was putting down in my report was accurate.
When you completed your first draft of an investigative summary in September of 2008, you actually emailed that entire thing to Alexis to get her comments.
I may have.
And she did, in fact, send you back comments.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Alexis always had comments.
And prior to having Ada interviewed at the Children's Justice Center, you had communication with the Utah County Attorney's Office about that interview, correct?
I was part of the Utah County Attorney's Office, but you mean, are you saying that I schedule it?
Fair statement. No, let me ask a better question.
Okay.
Okay. So prior to the interview at the Children's Justice Center, you spoke with one of the attorneys in the Utah County Attorney's Office about interviewing Ada, correct?
I'm sure I did.
And then you also spoke with Patty Johnston about that interview,
Yes.
right? And you discussed where that interview would occur?
I believe that Patty and I believe Mary Ann O'Brien were the ones that were talking about that.
Your Honor, may we treat this a little more informally as a pretrial evidentiary hearing, or do you want us to go through and mark each individual?
Let's mark it all so the record's clear.
May I approach?
You may. Do you need the clerk to mark every one of those? If so, let her get working on it. Let's begin. Every page?
These are different emails.
Okay, let's just have them marked separately. That's great.
May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
Ms. Whitney, I'm showing you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit E. Do you recognize that email?
Well, are you saying, do I have personal recollection of it? You know, I assume it's a email sent to me by Rachel MacNeill.
And then that was sent in July of 2008, right after you began working on this case, correct?
Yes.
And we'd move that the exhibit be received.
Do you stipulate to foundation for the emails?
Yes.
Could I see that? It's received.
And in this email, Rachel shares with you an experience she had with Ada in September of 2007, where Ada related some events, or related some observations from April 11th of 2007, correct?
Yes, are you talking about that middle paragraph?
Yes.
Yes.
And then down in the third paragraph, Rachel indicates that that he, referring to Martin, had time to rearrange her body.
Well, she doesn't, yeah. Yeah, actually, she does say rearrange her body, yeah.
May I approach, Ron?
Well, just keep going, yeah.
Showing you now what's been marked as Exhibit F. Do you recognize that?
Yes, it looks like an email sent to me by Alexis MacNeill on August the 12th, 2008.
And that has a similar account of Rachel's email that was contained in Exhibit E, correct?
With some things deleted, it looks like, and some added, yeah.
Yeah. And in that account from September 2nd of 2007, Rachel and Alexis indicate that Ada says that Mom was in her black and blue pants and shirt. And then Rachel puts in a comment saying, I think she means her running suit. Correct?
Is that Rachel that puts that in, or is that Alexis saying Rachel, I think that she means her running suit? I don't know.
I don't know. The words in the email, it says Rachel, I think she means her running suit.
Correct.
And then down in the third paragraph in this email from Alexis in Exhibit F, Alexis says, Ada has an excellent memory and is very intelligent, correct?
Yes.
Could I just see those when you're done with them?
Yes, I'm
We'll
sorry.
keep them in order. Thank you.
Your Honor, I don't think I moved to admit Exhibit F.
Any objection?
No objection.
F is received.
What's been marked as Exhibit G. Is that another email from Alexis to you dated September 2nd of 2008?
It appears to be that, yes.
And in this email, Alexis describes a concern that she has in relation to Ada. And in the last sentence of the third paragraph, Alexis says, "I am afraid to question her further without any professional help." Correct?
I see that, yes.
Your Honor, may I retrieve that email as
You may.
discussed above? Mr. Whitney, now I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit H. And this is an email from Patty Johnston to you on September 5th of 2008, correct?
Yes.
And in this email, Patty informs you that it is, well, let me strike that. Marianne O'Brien is an attorney at the Utah County Attorney's Office, correct?
Correct.
And she was assigned to the MacNeill case at this time.
Yes.
And in this email from Patty Johnston, Marianne informed her and through Patty you that Marianne was adamant that Ada be interviewed at the CJC, which is the Children's Justice Center.
Correct.
And you understood from this email that it was important to interview children by a professional?
Sure. Sure.
Your Honor, we'd move that Exhibit H be received.
Do you have, I'll receive it. Do you have any objection to the exhibits that will be offered this morning by the defense? What are their numbers from G, or from H to what?
From H to W.
H through W are received. Go ahead.
So Whitney, I'm now showing you what's been marked as Exhibit I.
Yes.
And this is an email from Alexis to you on February 26th of 2009, correct?
Correct.
You never provided us your personal emails that you sent out during this period of time. Is that correct?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled, he may answer.
I didn't provide anything. I wasn't even working in the office at the time that you asked for discovery, but whatever I received, as you can tell, I kept.
And so you kept what you received, but you didn't keep what you sent out. Fair-
Usually on an email, when I send something out and somebody responds to that email, that portion is on that email. So if you're asking me if I destroyed or in any way altered those emails, I didn't. Whatever I sent out or whenever I got back, I just moved it over to a file.
No, and I'm not indicating that you destroyed anything.
Okay.
On purpose. I'm just simply saying that in the discovery that was provided, we received emails that came to you, but not emails that were sent out by you.
Okay. I can't answer that.
And when you left the investigative division of the Utah County Attorney's Office, you went through your computer and saved the information that you believed was relevant to the MacNeill case and put it on some CDs.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. Exhibit I is an email from Alexis to you. Fair to say that this was in response to some conversations that you had with Alexis about what additional facts you needed from Ada?
You know, I can't tell from this because it wasn't a response to one of my emails, or it would have been attached to my email. Alexis would send me emails all the time, and so I really don't know what this is a response to.
Well, the first been marked as Exhibit X. Do you recognize that?
I mean, when you say I recognize it, I don't even know what, it says at the top, an email received from Alexis on 2/26. I don't know, was I alleged to have typed this, or?
Well, that's part of this 2/26 email, correct?
Oh, okay.
But it leaves out the first part of the email from Alexis, right? And it only has the body of the email.
Yeah, I don't know how it got in that form.
And so Exhibit X is what was initially provided to us in discovery. Is that?
This could have been, well, as I said, I wasn't here when discovery was given, but if I received an email, even though I saved that email and that was information that I thought needed to be on a report somewhere, I may have typed onto a document and tried to quote it, but it doesn't appear to me that this, I mean, it doesn't have the email heading on it.
Right.
So I have no idea. Someone either typed it in this form or they blocked out another part of the other email.
And what Exhibit X does not have is the part of the email that says, "Hi, Doug, I talked to Ada several times, and this is the story she kept giving me." Correct?
It does say that, which I saved. This was one that I'm sure you received from our disk.
Much later than from when
Okay.
we received Exhibit X. And so in relation to preparing the case, isn't it a fair statement to say that you took portions of some emails, such as this February 26, 2009 email?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance. We're here to explore taint of a child witness.
I agree. Sustained, I understand the point
Okay.
from your prior exhibits. Let's move on.
Okay.
Are we done with these exhibits? I don't.
No.
Oh,
Are you done with I
Done
and
with I.
X? And X?
Yes.
Very good. Do you have X there as well?
yes, I do.
Very good.
I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit J. Do you recognize that as a partial transcript of an interview that you conducted with Alexis MacNeill and Linda Clough on January 5th of 2011?
It's titled that, yes, and it shows that there were a number of people there, Alexis, Linda, and myself, and Jeff, I think, Robinson.
And in this interview, you had a significant discussion with Alexis and Linda and Jeff, of course, about Ada's testimony, correct?
Well, not just about the testimony, but it was about the case, but yes. Part of it had to do with Ada.
And you discussed theories of the case, correct?
Can you point to a page that you're referring to a theory?
I'm happy to submit the whole interview if you want.
Well, no, I mean, I'm not trying to avoid the question. I'm just saying that this is a small portion of an interview that we interviewed Alexis and Linda Clough, myself and Jeff, and she had presented a drawing to us, I believe, prior to this, regarding how her father had demonstrated how he had found his wife. And
Alexis
so
had
we
presented a drawing.
yes. And so we were talking about that, and we were talking about what Ada had seen in relationship to that. That's my memory.
Right. And then you had discussion with Alexis about what Ada reported had seen,
Yes.
correct? And Alexis reported that her father said that he found Michelle with her head down towards the faucet and her feet towards the other end of the tub.
That's correct.
And Alexis reported that Ada said that the opposite was true, that Ada saw Michelle with her feet towards the faucet and her head towards the other
Right.
end of the tub, right? And then there was a discussion about whether that's correct. And you said, no, you don't believe that's correct, right?
I said, I didn't say it wasn't correct. I said, to my understanding, the other witness saw her head down by the faucet. So if Ada would have seen her mother in the tub with her head on the opposite side, that would have been a unique sighting for an individual, because no one else saw that.
So on page 3, starting at line 50, Alexis says, her legs were by the faucet, so my dad had flipped her this way. Ada found her that way, right?
Well, that was her theory.
Uh-huh. And based upon what Ada had told Alexis.
Objection, speculation.
Okay.
Sustained.
Line 51, Jeff Robinson says, right, that was my understanding. Line 52, you say, you know, that is not my understanding.
That's correct.
Correct? And Jeff Robinson says again, okay, that was my understanding. And then you say, and it's also the Danielses said that her head was down by the faucet.
Correct.
So you told Alexis what other witnesses had said, correct?
Sure.
Then in the course of this interview, both you and Jeff Robinson asked Alexis to talk with Ada again, correct?
I believe, refer to a page for me. Yours is probably marked.
So page 31, line 660 is one.
Yes, in fact, that's what I made reference to earlier in my testimony, was that I wanted to know how close she got to the tub in order for her to see what she saw.
You recognize that?
It appears to be an email from Jeff Robinson to myself, dated February the 1st, 2011.
And in that email,
What's the date, I'm sorry?
To February the 1st, 2011.
Thank you. Go ahead.
And in that email, Jeff Robinson tells you, as I spoke with Alexis today, we brought Ada's original diagram and we discussed what she had to say. I asked Michelle, obviously referring to Alexis, to ask Ada how much water she saw in the tub when she approached. Ada said that the tub was about a quarter full. You recall that?
Personally, I don't recall that, but if it's here, I'm sure it happened.
Your Honor, I believe that's all the foundational questions I have for this witness.
Do you have redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Whitney, you've indicated that during the course of the investigation, I think you came on in July of 2008, is that right?
Correct.
During the course of the investigation, you've indicated that there were times that you asked Alexis to follow up with Ada on certain issues. I'd like you to think carefully about how many times that happened and in relation to what issues. Can you tell me that?
I believe we have looked at possibly 2 times, one in the email, one of the first emails that was shown to us. In fact, I don't think that was even in response to a request of mine. If I remember right, that email came from Rachel, and Rachel was, I think, baking cookies with Ada, relayed that information to Alexis. Alexis sent it to me, so that was really unsolicited. But I may have said at that time, I need to know how close she was to the tub. They were living in Nevada. I may have asked Alexis through emails or on phone maybe a couple times just to follow up with a question.
Do you remember what topics specifically were at issue when you asked her to follow up?
Well, the only topic we had was what she saw when she first came into the bathroom, what she was told, and the demeanor of her father.
Okay.
And most of those were addressed, as I stated.
So as far as police directives to Alexis to question Ada, you think that you gave at least 2 directives to do that? You said a couple of times?
At least 1, maybe 2.
Okay. And do you remember exactly when that would have been?
I believe that one of them was a response to the email we just addressed, where she had seen the mother fully clothed.
Okay.
And knowing the height of the tub, I wanted to know how close she actually had gotten. That's really the only one I can remember of wanting. Most of the information I got from Alexis and Rachel came directly from them without solicitation. I
Okay.
was a gatherer.
Thank you. Do you have follow-up questions? May Mr. Whitney be excused?
Yes.
Thank you.
Subpoena for this case, but
You're excused today. Thank you very much. Next.
Jeff Robinson.
Mr. Robinson, if you'll come up, raise your right hand and be sworn.
Do you solemnly swear that testimony you shall give in the case now pending before the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. If you'll be seated here.
For the record, will you please state your name and spell the last name?
Jeff Robinson, Robinson.
And what is your current position, Mr. Robinson?
I'm the Bureau Chief of the Utah County Attorney's Office, Bureau of Investigations.
And in relationship to this case, what is your role?
Presently, I'm the case officer.
Okay. Were you always the case officer?
No,
When did you become the case officer?
January 2011.
And what were the circumstances under which you became the case officer?
Doug Whitney was elected as a commissioner, and therefore I ended up taking the case.
Okay. Prior to you becoming the case officer, did you work closely with Mr. Whitney on the investigation?
You know, I ended up going on interviews with him, and we discussed the case. I had a full caseload at the time, and so I would just drop what I'm doing at that point in time and go on interviews with him, but was not particularly writing reports at that point.
How did that change when Mr. Whitney was elected as a commissioner?
He was no longer there, so there was created a void, and so I stepped in.
Okay. Did you establish a relationship with Alexis Summers in this case?
Yes.
And what kind of a relationship was that in relationship to the investigation?
She was a witness in the case, and so I discussed things with her.
And you got to know Ada MacNeill on some level?
You know, I don't remember when I actually met her, but I had never interviewed her.
Okay. Have you ever, you've since met with Ada MacNeill?
The time that I recall is at the preliminary hearing.
Preliminary hearing, okay. Did you ever interview Ada as part of this investigation?
I did not.
Okay. That was Patty Johnston that did?
That's correct.
Okay. You had contact with Alexis. Alexis was the guardian of Ada, correct?
That is correct.
During the investigation of this case?
Yes.
And she presently is the guardian, correct?
Correct.
Did you communicate with Alexis about this case?
Yes.
How frequently would you talk with her?
It really depended. When I had a question, occasionally she would call and ask how things are going. It was kind of on that basis.
Did you communicate by way of email as well?
Yes.
Okay. Did you on occasion have questions that came up about the facts of the case?
I did.
Did those questions involve Ada at times?
Yes.
Did you ask Alexis to follow up with certain questions with Ada?
Yeah, in particular, Doug left the office then in January 2011. I became the case officer. As I was going through that particular case, I had questions as relating to Ada and her coming in. I had requested an interview with Alexis and invited Doug to come simply because he had the institutional knowledge that I did not have on the case.
Okay.
And so as a result of that particular interview, it was actually Doug that had requested her to ask Ada some information in that particular instance. I did send some emails and a follow-up, and that's correct.
And what was the nature of the questions you had for Alexis?
I
As
was
they related to Ada?
Yes, I was interested in where Michelle was in the tub, the level of the water.
Okay. Did you ever ask for a diagram?
I did.
Okay. And what was the purpose of that?
I wanted to have it documented, where she was
Okay.
and how she was in the tub.
Similar questions that I posed to Mr. Whitney. Did you ever direct Alexis as to what information you needed to receive from Ada?
No.
As far as specific facts about the case?
Never.
There was discussion with Alexis. You talked with her about the case,
Yes.
the progress of the case?
Yes.
Okay. Judge, I have no more questions right now.
May Cross.
Morning.
Good morning.
You've been present while I questioned Mr. Whitney, correct?
I was.
So you understand the context of,
I understand the context, I think.
and you don't disagree with anything that Mr. Whitney has testified to today?
That's a big question. Ask me something specific. I don't recall anything that I disagree with.
Okay, that's all I was wondering.
Okay.
Okay. You recall the interview in January of 2011 with Alexis and Linda Clough?
I refreshed my memory through the, yes, through reading through that.
And the discussion that we had with Mr. Whitney in relation to that interview was accurate as to the best of your recollection, correct?
I believe so.
In that interview, Alexis was asked to follow up with Ada in relation to some aspects of Ada's testimony.
She
correct?
was.
And subsequent to that interview, you followed up with Alexis a number of other times, asking her to get more information from Alexis, correct?
Do you want to
Ada.
be
Did you
specific?
mean Ada?
Yes. Well, no, I meant he followed up with Alexis to get more information from Ada. Maybe
That's not what you said, but
Thank
go,
you.
go ahead. Ask the question again.
All right. Subsequent to that interview with Alexis on January 5th of 2011, you followed up with Alexis asking Alexis to get more information from Ada, correct?
You know, I don't know, with what you're saying, I'm not exactly sure. In the emails that I reviewed, it was a follow-up to the meeting on January 5th in that request.
May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit K. Do you recognize that?
I do.
And that was an email that you sent shortly after the January 5th, 2011 interview.
This would be one of those things that it would be accurate in the last question. Yes, I did.
And in that email, which, and we don't have a date for it.
Correct. It would have been in January.
Yeah. And in that email, you asked Alexis to get some more information from Ada, correct?
It was a diagram. What I asked was if she could ask Ada to diagram what she observed, how she observed her mother laying in the tub, which is what we had already discussed.
Yeah. And may I approach?
You may.
Showing you what's been marked as
Do you have a?
showing you what's been marked as exhibits M and O. Fair to say that that represents Alexis's response to your request for her to have Ada diagram what she saw?
This was her response to me on that diagram.
Yes, the diagram was over.
Could I take both of those?
Are you done with this?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So now it's been marked as exhibit L. That was the email that you sent thanking Alexis for getting information from Ada.
I did.
And again, you asked her to get more information from Ada.
It's stuff that we had already talked about, Council. We talked about the level of water in the tub. We had already discussed that. And that had not been answered yet.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, and so I'm really not meaning to.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying,
Confrontation.
I thought we were splitting hairs here, but it was the same information.
Well, on the Exhibit L, it was an email that you sent on the 27th, and you thanked Alexis for giving you the diagram,
I
right?
did.
And then you say, I hesitate to ask you the next question. I hate to have the children and you keep reliving this terrible time in your lives, but I'm interested in how much water was in the tub.
Right.
And when Ada found her mother, if she can remember. So this is another request by you to get information.
In my response is you're splitting hairs because we had already asked that, and we hadn't gotten that yet.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now showing me the list of marked as Exhibit P. This was an email that you received shortly after the January 27 email, I presume.
Do you know, I'm not sure. There's another one that has this on it with my information at the bottom, and that would be a little more accurate in my mind as understanding the date on that.
That's true. I see that. It's Exhibit Q.
Thank you. Right, that would have been in response to the January 26th.
Okay. Show you what's been marked as exhibits R and S. And R and S have, well, R has 2 emails on it. One from you to Alexis on February 4th of 2011, and then actually I guess that's 3. And one from Alexis to you on February 9th of 2011.
That's correct.
And then the top one would be your final response to Alexis on some date.
Yes. That's correct.
And your email on February 4th of 2011 asks Alexis, when you mentioned that your mother's hair was caught in the drain, do you know if Ada meant the drain on the bottom of the tub or the silver overflow drain as pictured in this picture with Ricky from our office in the tub?
That's correct.
And so you again asked Alexis to follow up with Ada. Fair statement?
I did ask, I didn't know if, when I say follow up with her, I didn't know if she knew which drain that was. That was the question.
And then in Alexis's email on February 9th, she says, I just saw this photo. I will talk to Ada about it and get you details. Right?
I just gave it to him, but I believe that's correct.
I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit T. And at the bottom of Exhibit T is an email from you on March 4th of 2011 to Alexis saying just a friendly reminder that you still need her email of what Ada told you recently involving the water level and how she was supposed to go to McDonald's.
Correct. That wasn't a question as to asking Ada. That was just a question as to the information that Ada had already supplied to Alexis.
I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit U.
Right.
This was an email that you received on or about March 30th of 2011, correct?
That's correct.
And contains a description of what Ada asserts, well, strike that. This email contains a description of what Alexis asserts that Ada told her in response to your questions.
I think that's accurate.
And it contains numerous factual assertions that you had not been told before by Alexis or Ada, correct?
Let me read over it real quick and I'll respond to that. So when you're asking me if I understood that, I wasn't familiar with the McDonald's issue right then that I recall. And so that was kind of new to me. However, she did mention that in the CJC transcripts. So when you're asking me what's new to me versus what's to Doug, that may be a totally different situation, right?
Counsel, is your question, does this email contain factual assertions that were broader in scope than what he had asked Alexis to follow up on?
No, although that's a good question, but
I'd like that question answered.
Okay, say that again.
Does this email contain factual details that are broader in scope than what you asked Alexis to follow up on with the child?
There are more details in here than what I had asked her, correct?
Okay, go ahead. Why don't you ask your question? I don't mean to replace yours with mine.
fine. And the additional details were details that you hadn't heard about previously in the course of the investigation of this case, correct?
Probably not all the details, but so that's kind of a broad question.
And during January, February, and March of 2011, you also understood that Alexis was working on a civil case in relation to her father, Martin MacNeill, correct?
Talking about the home.
Yes.
That's correct.
And she had informed you that she was afraid that Martin was going to win that case.
She did say that.
And she asked you if you could help out and write a letter to the court.
Not in the email. She was asking me if I could do more. I had written a letter for her, and that's really all we could do. We could not go any further, and so.
So you must have been marked as Exhibit B. You discussed the progress of the case with Alexis,
I did.
and then that also has the March 30, 2011 email
It does.
from Alexis to you as well, right? So what's been marked as Exhibit W. Exhibit W is an email from you to Doug Whitney, correct?
There's a series of them on here. Okay, yes.
And the last sentence you write in that first paragraph to Doug was, the more questions we ask her, referring to Alexis, the more conflicting answers we get. That concerns me. Right?
I haven't read it yet, sorry. Oh, there we are. I did write that.
Fair to say that as a law enforcement officer, you would understand that there are potential complications in interviewing child witnesses by untrained professionals?
I would say that's accurate. It had been since about 1992 since I've interviewed a child witness, but yes, I'm aware of that.
I have just one moment, Your Honor.
You may.
Call the question I have, Your Honor.
You may redirect.
Mr. Robinson, when did the investigation start here, and has the investigation ended in this case?
We've been going since it started. In fact, my last interviews were probably 6 weeks ago to a month ago.
You were the bureau chief when the case came into the office, correct?
That is correct.
And when was that? When
That
did
would
the
have
case
been,
come in?
I was initially asked about it probably in December of 2008. We did not open the case until January. I want to say January 16th of 2009.
Okay, and when did things
Excuse
really
me,
get rolling?
2008.
2008?
Yeah.
When did things really get rolling as far as the investigation?
Doug was assigned it in July of 2008, and that's actually when things got rolling.
So your bureau has been working this case for over 5 years.
That's correct.
Okay. Alexis, what's her role? I mean, what was her did she approach you, your office, your bureau about
No,
this case?
she didn't.
Who was it that approached?
Initially, I think she had approached Dave Sturgill, who was a prosecutor in our office, to ask him to see if our office could take a look at it.
Okay. Was Alexis the point person
No,
from the MacNeill family, though?
In the initial, she wasn't. When it came to the interviews, she had the most information.
Okay. Did at some point, though, Alexis become a point person for investigators to talk to inform them of the progress of the case?
Yes, she became the main person, along with Linda Clough. Both of them were individuals that we updated. They called us often to see what was going on. And
Who's Linda Clough?
Linda Clough is the sister to Michelle MacNeill.
Okay. The alleged victim here is Michelle MacNeill. She's deceased.
That's correct.
Alexis and Linda were essentially victim representatives in this case. Is that correct?
That would be accurate.
Do you have contact with your victims when you're investigating a case?
I do.
And what's the purpose of that?
It's to keep them updated, ask them questions. They certainly have a better knowledge of the family workings than I would have, but basically to keep them updated.
Is that routine and common practice during an investigation?
It is.
To have contact people?
Yes.
Okay. In asking Alexis questions, in particular with respect to Ada, asking her to follow up on certain issues, did you ever suggest an answer?
Absolutely not.
Feed her an answer that you needed for the investigation?
No. They're just simple questions.
Throughout the investigation, were the theories changing over time of what may have occurred?
Coming on in January, yes. We're just trying to figure out exactly what did happen. And that's correct. It did change, depending on who we talked with and how it all related.
Were you following the evidence as it came out? As to where you went next?
I wasn't that involved other than doing the interviews, assisting with the interviews to begin with, but after that, absolutely correct.
So once you got involved, if the evidence pointed one way, you would follow that?
That's correct.
If it pointed another way, you would follow up on that?
Yep,
Was the purpose to gather information?
that was the purpose.
Nothing further, Judge.
Like Mr. Whitney, you had discussions with Alexis regarding the various theories of the case, correct?
I would explain what was going on, what we were doing.
And in addition to Alexis, you released a substantial portion even of your investigative file to the media, correct?
Objection, relevance?
May be relevant if the child saw it. I'll allow it. Sustained as to foundation. When and where, what.
Okay. And do you recall testifying at a prior hearing in this case on June 26th of this year?
Okay.
Do you recall testifying then?
I did testify.
And do you recall stating at that hearing that you had released a substantial portion of the investigative file to the media?
Objection, same objection.
And what material are we talking about?
Investigative summaries, information that,
Sustained, by the way. Go ahead.
beginning in September of 2009, you started speaking to reporters.
Objection,
Correct.
relevance, same objection.
Overruled. I just don't know whether the child saw it. The fact that it's out there it may be relevant. I'll allow it. Go ahead.
We did.
And then after that, shortly after that, you began releasing information that you had obtained from investigative subpoenas to the media.
That was through the prosecutor. We didn't release anything that on our own without her approval.
And that included some of the investigative summaries as well, correct?
To be honest with you, I don't know what the media got off the top of my head.
Okay. That's all the questions I have.
Anything?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You are aware that there was substantial media coverage in relation to your investigation.
Yes,
That included a very lengthy article in the Deseret News,
yes.
Nancy
Objection,
Grace.
relevance. I don't believe a 10-year-old's reading the Deseret News.
I need to know what's out there, overruled. So a Deseret News article, go ahead.
Multiple articles in the Deseret News, correct?
That would be accurate.
And then on December 4th of 2010, there was a 20-page article about the case.
You know, I don't have them all in my head, so, but I know there were articles.
On December 7th of 2010, Nancy Grace,
I never saw it, so I don't,
you've heard about it, though.
I heard that Nancy Grace was involved, but I don't know what she said. I've never saw it.
February of 2011, 2020 did a special.
They did.
And you participated in that.
I did.
And they interviewed you, filmed you.
That would be accurate.
Since then, there's been numerous other media reports about the case as well, correct?
I assume so. I haven't been following the media.
That's all the questions.
Do you have any follow-up?
Briefly, Judge.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Robinson, are you aware of whether or not Ada MacNeill, the child witness in question, observed the media?
I know what her caregiver has told me, but I don't know
What's that?
personally that she has kept her from the media, period.
What was the purpose of going to the media during the investigation?
We were hoping that we could open up some new leads
Did it
in the
work?
case. We got new information, but I don't know that it actually helped us get the new leads we were looking for. That was just a matter of just continually working.
New information came in as a result, though?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. You may step down.
Thank you.
Next.
Alexis.